guess I'll call it. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 p.m. on Monday, the 1st of May, 2023. This is our Board of Commissioners meeting for the Lake Bluff Park District here in Lake County, Illinois. This is our Committee of the Whole meeting, and Marcia, who is off there on Zoom, if you could call the roll, please.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Here.
Commissioner Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Raymore. Commissioner Reeder. Commissioner Walsh.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
President Beeler.
Here. Can I ask, please, for a motion to approve the agenda for this evening? So moved. Second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Beeler.
Yes. Next up is our statement of visitors. This allows anyone who is in attendance tonight, either via Zoom or in person, to have a 3-minute opportunity to address the board on any subject pertaining to the Park District. We do not have anyone physically here at the Park District Community Room. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a statement?
There are no guests on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll move along to verbal communications, in which I get to make a report. There has been a lot that's been happening since the last time we all gathered together. First, to announce there will be one of our Park District, our Finance Committee citizens is no longer going to be able to be participating with this upcoming year. So there will be an enrollment application coming out within this week if people would like to apply for this position. So you said by Wednesday or so we should have something?
Yeah, it'll be up by Wednesday, and we're going to run it through May 19th, which is a Friday, and then forward that information to Commissioner Weber and the Finance Committee.
Okay. So that's item number one. Item number two is that John and I had a second meeting with Kurt Wolford from the Stormwater Management Commission. This was also with Jeff Urso from Shields Township, with Jeff Hansen from the Village, and Kathy Lahunka and Jan Selbach, and I know I'm missing Carl, who was from Shields as well. I'm sorry, I don't recall his last name. Okay, there we go, but there was also another gentleman from Shields. This was once again to discuss opportunities that could be available through SMC with different areas within the Park District and within the Shields Township to see if there could be opportunities. There could be some synergy with working with different groups and governmental agencies regarding stormwater management. Again, Kurt expressed that the thought was looking for clean water as well as stormwater management. So there was discussion, and we'll see where we can go from there. But again, identification of different possibilities that we could work on, and that will continue. Emily Lane and I had a community meeting with John Beeler and Jim Lakeman, and this was to invite neighbors regarding the hours of pickleball as well as paddleball. So I believe that was a very good discussion, being able to listen to neighbors about their concerns with lights, with noise, and I know that staff has already started that exploration as to what happens in other communities, so that'll come back to the Facilities and Program Committee. Also met with Cindy Fletcher when we made the decision at our last board meeting to have someone start this communication. There has been a lot going on in the beach. There has been a guardrail that was taken out, as well as taken out in the other sense of being smashed and not there anymore. There have been delays with trucks moving dirt up that access road, and there's a lot that's been going down there. So and Cindy has been going down there already, documenting what's going on. John sent her plans to review, so the sooner we can get this up and running to be able to communicate this kind of information. I believe, John, you're going down there pretty much on a daily basis. I know Noah's down there constantly.
Yeah, I took some pictures today. We have a new set of ruts up on top and a little bit more damage in the parkway for the tree roots. We did meet with the village and North Shore Water Reclamation District and a contractor, IHC, on Friday morning at the village and had a pretty good meeting with them. They are gonna put up a safety fence in lieu of the guardrail that's been taken down. And we're just, kind of working through some of the other issues, and we may try to, they still need to put up their safety signs, and, quite a number of other things that we addressed in that meeting, but I think for now, we're gonna try to do that on a weekly basis, like a 7 a.m. meeting on Friday morning, just to, discuss everything that's going on during the week or what's coming up for the next week.
And there's already been one Saturday that they worked. And this was about that they weren't going to have to do that, so this is going to be a challenge this summer.
Well, it'll be Friday, they worked an hour later, they worked till 6. So I was already getting some emails from, at least one angry individual, so they said 5, why are they going fast? And they didn't even communicate with us, so we didn't know they were going till 6. Kinks we're trying to work out, but it will be a long summer.
It will be a long summer. So for those of you who are contemplating inflatable kayaks or paddle boards, this may not be the best summer to do this. Dr. Larry Greiner is already down in Springfield, already talking to folks. Scott and I had notice from Larry through John as to really looking at what kind of priorities we would have for the Park District, if this would be a line item in a budget somewhere. So the focus really was with the rec center itself, with safety, with compliance with ADA, with other, I would say not so appealing things, but things that need to be done with the building, with the roof and so forth, so that if we are able to have any success with getting this in its appropriations, it would be a very good thing, because it would help alleviate some of the costs that we have as a park district.
Yeah, they really zeroed in on that safety, security, and ADA accessibility improvements.
And is that because there's a grant available toward that?
I think that's what it was,
Okay.
funding that.
Because we have a lot of stuff we
that
need, we could make it look like,
We gave a list that was over
Yeah.
$1 million for
yeah.
the entire rec center, but, and of that, the ADA and safety security portion of that is $285,000.
So we did include the pool, we did include the beach obviously on there, because those are very different interests. But at the same time, if there could be that safety, accessibility for funds, that would be top of the list. And last thing is from Paul Greenfield, Emily Lane, and myself, we ran and were elected. It's official finally. And we did have a campaign, that fund that we have put together. We have extra funds that we have, so we'll be making a donation to the Friends Group for the Night at the Range that will be coming up on the golf course, coming up soon. So we'll be putting our excess funds to that. Thank you to everybody who did donate for that. All right, I think that concludes everything I have for the President's report. What I'd like to do next with new business is, again, there is no packet tonight other than our agenda. This is really for discussion so that we have the ability to discuss the items that we have in front of us, as well as move forward on some ideas that we can all put together. The first one is for grants and planning. And I tip my hat to those people out there, Michelle Remchek especially, who is able to find those grants and find those special accessible grants. And she's been very successful, as we talked about before, bringing that home and getting that kind of funding for the projects that they do through Ebola, which obviously benefit the Park District. But if we're looking at it on a much wider scale, we have to look at the grants that are available specifically Park District-wise, as well as through other sources of funding. Scott and I had the opportunity to meet with John Beeler and a gentleman by the name of Todd Stanton. He's a landscape architect, but one of his two areas that he has, one is to do planning, master planning, but the other one is to really help park districts write their grant applications. And specifically, we always talk about the Osland grant as well as the park grant. Different sources of funding through the state for those two different grants. That's why the park was closed for several years, because the source of funding wasn't there. That's why Osland was open, but again, park will be open. And as we said before, park is a much larger grant, but it is a 75-25. So the park district would have to come up with 25%. The park grant would provide 75%. The Osland grant is a 50-50. Same thing though. But one of the things, and I guess Scott jump in as we go along, one of the things that was a couple of things that Todd brought to light as we go through this. And again, we came on as a relatively new board when came in 4 years ago. Now we're old. But this is a whole new language. This is a whole new thing to look at. So if you don't come from an area where you're used to grants, you're used to the kind of process and so forth, this is learning how to go through this process. And so he spoke of the fact that we as a board have to have that resolution passed in order to be able to apply for these kinds of grants, to say that we have the funding in place. And that's a big ask when you're looking at a park grant of $1 million or more, or even if you're looking at an Oslo grant for $600,000, meaning that we have to have the funds ready to be pledged. He did talk about some park districts that kind of make that gamble, that they think they should be able to have the funds there. But to really look at it from our aspect to say, we have to have that ready as a board. And we've talked about this before, about our financing, about having the fund balances there, about being comfortable to be able to do that. That was something that was very, it resonated greatly with me as to, we have to, you can't just say you apply for a grant, there's a lot of steps to go into it. Another aspect he brought up was being ready to do this and the kinds of scoring that goes on with grant application. We've talked about that before, whereas to, if we have a grant that doesn't go through, there will still be some feedback that comes back. But he did talk about there's some weight that's placed on having a master plan or strategic plan in place. And I just took a look at our website and all of the documents that we have up there. We do have a strategic plan. It was a 2015 to 2019 strategic plan, but it was developed in 2015. That was a very different time in the Park District. We have a 2022 Citizens Land Use report that came out of the proposal regarding the golf course and wetlands. We do have 2 community surveys, community-wide surveys, and that was one of the things that Todd Stanton spoke about as well. And the weight that is put on your community surveys with looking for a grant and that kind of proposal. We had a 2009 community survey, and we had a 2017 community survey. And if we think about where we were in 2017 and where we are today in 2023 and how life has changed so dramatically since then, our beach has changed, our pool has changed, we're long overdue for a community survey. That's about what.
Yeah, I echo the sentiments about the community survey that was, about the master plan. That was something that was, talked about several times during our discussion. And there is definitely some emphasis placed on, hey, is this what the community wants? And you have a plan in place, like, a shovel-ready plan in place, so that if we write you the check, that you can go out and execute that. Because I think you have, I believe, 2 years to go, once you actually get the grant to execute. So you can't just be like, oh, we're gonna get it, and then we'll come up with a plan, and then a year later you're really behind the eight ball and you're scrambling. So there are 3 things that was really emphasized, and Jennifer's talked about a couple of them. Number 1 is community interaction. Local participation is crucial. Getting people to voice their support for what they want the park district to do is very valuable when going through the grant process.
And that's somehow included in the grant?
It's in the application,
Okay.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, second is budgeting and funding, which we just kind of talked about. And then the design, actually having something to include in the application for the, I guess, reviewers to review. We talked a little bit about, timing for all these things. And, one of them was, due in June. I can't remember, John, which one was due in June and which one's the park is anticipated to come out, but we don't have a date yet, is that?
No, it's open today, May 1, until it goes through the end of June.
Gotcha.
2-month cycle.
Okay.
And then Oslab starts in July and goes through May.
Okay.
Or goes through August.
Okay. So time's not on our side. This is not something that's gonna happen, especially if we're gonna have actually a master plan going through. So I think it's worthy, that's why we're having a discussion right now, like, hey, what steps can we take right now to make sure that in 2024 that we have everything we need, so if we want to engage in a grant writer, we can just say, here's all your documentation, and we can go forward.
Isn't there some kind of a thing, I thought I remember hearing in the past that, like, if we were to, put something out there, even if it wasn't a fully baked application this year, that they would look upon us more fondly next year because we tried this year?
It does. Sometimes the grant administrators look at that if you've applied in the past, even though you haven't, you didn't receive the grant, you usually get some feedback on why you didn't receive it, so you know what to do next time, and then that can, also get you some credits, when applying again.
Mm-hmm.
But we were in this discussion, the thought came back around to, yes, we could put something out there now, and it may not be successful, but is it something that we really want to apply for? I mean, if we were looking for something he talked about developing pickleball courts, developing playgrounds, things like that. If we had some plan in place that would be worthwhile to put it out there, maybe it wouldn't be fully baked, as you said earlier, a complete plan, but it was something that we really thought as a park district was necessary. But the way we keep coming back and focusing is we're looking at the beach, we're looking at the pool. We know that we have the funding for the pool, but did we have $1 million that we as a park district could pony up if we got $1 million or more for a park grant? Right. And that would be a tough. We don't have the funding now. Right. So rather than, and we could, and he talked very enthusiastically about, we could get community surveys done, we could get everything done and have a grant application in place. But is it prudent for us to do that now? Or really put something that first off, he has that community input in place, and then be able to go forward with the grant application from there and make it more solid.
And I remember something we talked about earlier in the year with you, John, was the need for an overall comprehensive plan, and it's something that's been echoed by community sentiment. Many people have come up and said, where is this, right? And, I do think it's long overdue. So if we're going to take the time and do this, like, all right, we may not apply for a grant this year, but boy, we're going to look really good for 24 and 25.
What are these grants mainly being awarded for? Did you get any feel for that?
It was really interesting to hear the things that are getting funded and the things that are not. So we're like, first thing that was brought up was the pool. Like, tons of people in our community use this pool. It's, it's the kind of the North Shores and Lake County's kind of community pool. There's not many around it like that. And his reaction was like, nah, pools don't do very well. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, everyone uses this. He's like, dog parks are great. I'm like, come on. Like, I know it's a very dog-friendly community, but this is something they can, utilize for literally generations here. So it didn't seem to be like a great rhyme or reason. And I brought, one of us brought up the ADA project for I think the paddleboards. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I asked about that, one said, and it was like, well, maybe. It's like, there's no, I didn't get like a sense that, there was like, oh, like these projects are more favorable than others. It seemed like there was a set scoring system that they had, and it was followed to a T.
Splash pads? Taking your pool
Yes.
and filling it in and making it a splash pad?
Okay.
Thank you, same reaction as to, yeah.
Hey, there's a go splash right now, there's puddles all over the place.
Yeah.
So again, we spoke with one person, we will speak to another agency as well to get a different perspective. But if we were looking for the pool and that really was our thought about this, we came away from this saying, we need to get community input first. We really need to be more community-driven and master plan-driven rather than just making an application for something that could get us a couple $100,000 because you don't have to go for the full 600. But you should go for the maximum that you want because they're not going to give you more than you ask for.
What's the maximum on the park grant? Is there a maximum?
600.
2 million for the park, right?
Excuse me, park for two.
Yeah, that's.
2 million.
2 million for the park. He said that, but there's less money that goes in the park grant, and it's actually more competitive. And I think he said that we would probably have a less, even though that might be a better fit for a pool, that would probably have a less likely chance of getting the park grant than the OSLAD, because there's more money in the OSLAD.
So it sounds like he couldn't even give angles, like he couldn't say like, well, if you made your pool ADA compliant, or if you got all these people to say like, there was a drowning in a nearby area and the swim lessons at this pool, like no, nothing like that even.
And we brought that up too. We have a beach in the community,
Right.
like we'll swim down there, pool is a great training ground.
Right.
It seemed like something we could work in, but in terms of like the whole point structure, it would have counted for very little.
Yeah, he said we'd actually, and he said we'd lose points for not having a plan, master plan. Did he say that as well?
He said it was a percentage. I recall him saying about 5 to 10% or so.
Yeah,
but it's some weight. But he said you could also, it's not going to be so weighty that it would make a difference. Yeah, so again, those are the two big ones. He brought up the Great Lakes initiative. There are other sources of funding that are out there as well. And that's why, again, through SMC because of their funding, but you're looking at very specific projects for that. Working with Dr. Reiner to see if we can have those kind of connections through legislature to look for funding that way. But we're on the same page. The takeaway was really not to jump into this without having a fully formed plan, a good plan for the park district. These last 4 years have been unusual because of getting John come in as the executive director, and I'm not making excuses, I'm just kind of retelling what we already know. John coming in as an executive director, we had COVID, which really reshaped a lot of thinking, and a year was spent developing the Citizens Land Use Task Force report to be able to assess what could be done with land use. Now that we have all of that in place, we really do need to make that step forward to say, as a full, complete park district, what is our focus and what are we looking for and what's our priority?
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
With that whole pool and grant, because I'm a little confused because in the master plan that they did, that we have on the website, it says that we did receive an OSLAD matching grant for the pool. And it was an awarded 400,000 K. So I'm just confused how they got that grant for the pool then and why.
What it was for.
What year was that?
It's 24. The grant funding plan was completed in 2014, it states.
Was it toward the,
And it says staff submitted multiple grants for the beach,
That was.
Blair, and
That was in 2015 with the
the Park
referendum
District
work.
was successfully awarded a $400,000 OSAD matching grant for the Lake Bluff pool, but the state of Illinois put the grant on hold. So we received it, but then they decided to pull it. So I was just wondering
how we get it back?
Yeah. And, well, and then how did we get that one? Like,
Yeah.
what was the process behind that?
Yeah.
So, just because that just doesn't make sense. Like, we got it before for the pool.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused with that.
We'll have to look into notes from the time to be able to see whatever.
Yeah, I could look into that. They also applied for a 2019 park grant.
Right, I
So
remember that one.
We did not receive. Right. I have to look at the older one for that.
See, to me, I think one of the problems, if we look at the grant, if we say, okay, we're not gonna get the pool, we're not gonna get a grant for the pool, and we need to have matching funds, then if we go back to our budget and we go back to the work we did, looking at how much money we would have available for the pool, if the plan is still to repair the pool, you know, do a 10-year, hopefully, repair on the pool, then we really don't have the money. I mean, unless something dramatic has changed in the budget, we really don't have a substantial amount of money to commit to something else.
And that's where, again, just as we said, there can be a good line appropriation to alleviate funds that would go for a roof repair or for some other things that does give us a little bit more wiggle room. But, and that's why it's constant trolling for money is, I guess, where we really need to go, because I'm sorry Sue's not here tonight because she participated in a seminar to look for funds for tree inventory and for, I think there was something else with the ravine study, is that right?
Yes.
So she, is, because of her work with Lobola, because of other organizations that she's affiliated with, she's also looking for other sources of funds that could help in other parts of the park district to shake a little tree and look for a little source of funds someplace else. If we could host more movies, to rent out the facilities, those kinds of things. So that's, I guess, more in like a 35,000 feet overview as to, we know that those two grants are out there. We know we will continually look for other sources of funding and be open and available to exploring those. But we need to get community input and a master plan in place. Now, I know the school district is starting on their strategic plan. We had talked before about trying to work with the village and doing kind of like a trifold strategic plan. I don't believe it's going to come to fruition because the school's already starting with theirs. So we need to get moving on our plans forward. Okay. Any other thoughts on that from anyone?
I mean, I think you know my attitude. You look at the strategic plans and you could go into Ron Salsky's office and there'd be plans sitting, you know, that cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. We have a beach plan now that costs $62,000 or $64,000. That's been sitting there for 4 years that we've done nothing with. And I just question the wisdom. I mean, I understand in terms of getting grants, maybe they say, you know, you have to check these boxes and you have to have a plan and so on. But then what are we going to do with, what grants are we going to get? What are we going to do with them? What's the plan going to do for us that we're actually going to accomplish something, as opposed to just say, hey, we have this nice plan. You know, people want to use the pool. Okay, we know people want to use the pool.
I think, like,
I mean,
There's a handful of items that we have, earmarked, in the next 5 years that are, X pool, X beach that we could apply for. And that then frees up some capital to then go after those big ticket items like the pool in a handful of years when we have a little bit more capital. I did ask the question of whether or not hey, are you kind of put on the do not give list, for several years if you get one of these things? And the answer is no. Communities get, 3 and 4 years, 4 and 6 years. So I think that if you have a viable plan, doesn't mean you can't get money every year. I think for the amount of money that we put in for it, the return that we could potentially get makes the project worthwhile. But I agree. I go into John's office and you see bookshelves of these things just collecting dust, and it's just seems like a waste of money. But we're going to make sure it puts a good use, Paul.
I mean, I think what we need to do is we need to identify those areas that, I agree with you, there are things outside the pool and the beach that we can apply for. But I think we need to identify those and then talk to these people we've hired and other contacts we have. And if that means talking with, Julie Morrison and Bob Morgan, for example, as well, and figure out what are the odds that we actually get a grant for these things.
I looked again at our laundry list of all the different things that we have and looked at the 2011 20-year capital plan. And I think our mode of thinking now is so different from where we were then. I mean, when you think about a 2011 20-year capital plan and how can you really, because we had this discussion before, we look 5 to 10 years out. We know that we can have the ability and the comfort to be able to say, okay, we can move something up. We can get another, Noah is able to say we're able to get another year or two out of a piece of machinery that we have in our capital plan. Let's move it out a little bit. So I don't know if a 20-year plan would even be feasible, but I think having a plan in place to kind of suss out priorities and see where the priorities are for the folks who are our district community users. Because we have the plan in place to be able to fund the pool and make these kinds of repairs. We know that people are happy with the pool, that they like the pool. There could be folks out there that say they do want a new pool, that they want us that they want a splash pad, that they want, or they don't see this as a good amenity, or they see this as an amenity that's just fine in our plan to continue to maintain and keep it as it is the way to go.
It almost feels like it's, the order is community survey, wish list that comes out of that, strategic plan, and then how do we map that into possible grants that are, available? What can we check off that list, based on the grants that we can maybe get for things? And then we figure out how we accomplish the rest of the stuff without grants.
Because there is a buy-in. We do need to have someone to help us guide us through this. And if there is a buy-in between $5,000 to $10,000 to apply for a grant, we need to make sure that we're using that money effectively. So I agree. We have an incredible master plan for the beach. It needs to be, get a little bit of dust off of it, needs to be updated. But that could also be part of our master plan as well. And where does that fall on the priority list, or how can we do multiple priorities at the same time? But as I started to say, this is a new language, this is a new world, and in having conversations with John, as John continues to introduce us to other people to guide us through this, master plans, strategic plans are part of this world. So, all right, so with that in mind, Scott and Jen and I, as I said, will meet with another source for planning and get a different perspective on things. We'll continue to explore this, but that's going to be our continued focus and refinement. All right. Next up, software and phone application update.
Okay, I'll touch on that, and I might have Jim jump in a little bit. So we've been meeting with, actually been having monthly meetings with ActiveNet, with our rep there, and talking about several updates for our software that need to take place. That would be helpful, at least on the staff side of that. And in looking at that, we've also been talking to them about an app. They do have a phone app that's available. So we're looking at the feasibility of bringing that in. It's one that Northbrook is using currently, the Northbrook Park District. And there's some other agencies. I've also reached out to some of our neighboring agencies, asked what they're using. Get some mixed answers. You know, Glencoe Park District said they had an app about 10 years ago, wasn't getting much use, so they actually stopped using it and paying for it. But they're interested in seeing what comes out of our, you know, our process here as we look at it, because they may want to bring that back. And Highland Park said the same thing. They were interested to hear what we found out as we're looking into it. They weren't much help, but there are some others. The good thing about the one from ActiveNet that we're looking at is that it interfaces or is interactive with or I guess integrated with our software. So there are cheaper apps out there. I know that I've heard that mentioned for $3,000 or something. There's other maybe park and rec type app that could be used, which there are. However, they're not integrated with the software, so the software can push information out to them, but it can't receive information back. So with the app through ActiveNet, you would be able to go on your phone and you'd be able to register for a program. You'd be able to reserve a court or something like that. If it's another app that doesn't integrate with ActiveNet, you can only look at that information. You can look at the classes. You can look at it's like looking at our website on your phone. Basically, you can't sign up for those things. So that would be a problem with going with one of those other apps. That's why we're looking at this one. I know that they came back with a pretty big number of $17,000 for a year for there's two sides of it. So there's a public facing app, and then there's also a staff side of the app that can be used, and you don't have to do both. So we're negotiating. We told them we haven't budgeted for that much money for doing the app, so we wouldn't be interested in spending that kind of money. So they're working on a proposal for us. I think that they're probably going to come in a little bit closer to $10,000, but we're still working with them to see what sort of time that would cover. And again, we're most interested in starting with a public-facing app, so that would benefit our users, our patrons. And so I think, Jim, was there anything that I'm missing from either the app or the software that we talked about?
No, we have a meeting with the app for I think like every Wednesday, or every Tuesday.
I guess it has been.
Yeah, it's been almost every week. I do think it's very user-friendly. They did a demo for us, and I asked staff what they thought of, and they said, yeah, I think our consumer, the residents would really enjoy using the app. You can do everything either on an iPad or a tablet or iPhone or an Android. So it does work well with, he gave us a demonstration on his iPhone, and it looked really good. We probably will know in a week what the price will be. We did go back to him, like John said, and Director Beeler told him, is this till the end of the year fee, or is this a year from when we purchase it? So that's the answer we're waiting for right now.
What is the total functionality of the app? Is the point just to, basically enroll in longer term classes? Is that, will there be can you go on and see, if I, logged in, can I see that today's Monday and at these times there's these classes in the fitness center and there's these, there's this going on at the park district. Can I reserve a paddle court through it? What else can I do in the app?
Yeah, I believe the reserving the courts was a possibility.
That was a possibility,
Looking
yes.
at, yeah, all of the classes, I think he even said paying a daily fee.
Yes.
So, but the problem is, like, if you're a non-resident, go to the beach, you have to set up an account. So that you do have to, and that's free, but you have to, go into Actinet and set up a free account, just like you do right now to register on our website. You do the same for the app. You wouldn't have to do it again if you're already a current Actinet user, but I'm saying to pay a daily fee. So if you are a resident, but you're coming to pay pickleball and you want to pay a daily fee, you can do it through the app. So that would be.
Same with the fitness center.
Yeah, exactly, drop into a fitness center, something like that. That's it.
One of the other nice features was push notifications. So it would tell you, like, if you were in the adult softball league and it was a rain out, you could push that notification out and go to all the users. You could see your schedule, you can see all your kids' schedules, so that you can use, you don't have to use it as a display, but you can use it as a display. So if you have multiple kids that are young and different programs, you're trying to keep track of their schedule, it's all right there.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, if you're in the yoga class and you turn on the notifications and the instructor's sick that day, you get the notification before the class. You can go in there and set alarms or memos that remind you, you have a yoga class today in 45 minutes or whatever. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
Very cool.
And we can customize the app, so if you're going to the app store, we call it the Lake Bluff Parks. So we can actually customize it to whatever we want it to say and whatever logo we want to use.
Did you say, Jim, that there was a way to look at donations and so forth, these folks?
That is not necessarily through the app. That we're looking into the software that, as we're going through some of these updates and trainings, there's a portal for fundraising. And we haven't gotten to that yet for the training, but we asked, Nikki Bullocks and I asked the rep, what can you do with that? So we're setting up a separate demo just to see the fundraising. We already paid for it. So it's like already part of the system. We're just not using it. The box was never checked. So we're now, Nikki and I are both administrators now. They added us. So we can kind of see all the behind the scenes and what what is the capability of ActiveNet. There's a lot more to ActiveNet than what we're utilizing.
So one of the things, so right now, if you register for a program, you come and fill out a piece of paper. It has an area that you can make that donation. We don't have that online, so but we have the capability, so that's what they're working on doing now. Not through the app, but at least online. The other improvement we talked about for the software was the pool registration. So right now, you can't register for the pool online. Register for everything else, you can't register for the pool online. And the reason for that is because we consider, with our reciprocal agreement, Lake Forest is residents, for a lot of the pricing, but then when we get the pool, we don't consider them. So unfortunately, they've not been able to delineate that in the software, so they said no registration online because of that issue. So we talked with them at length about working around that issue to be able to allow our residents to be able to register for the pool online. So we won't have it probably for this summer, but they do think that there's a way that, in even working with their developers to make it work with our software. So by next year, we should be able to offer that.
Golf tee times?
We don't, right now, that's not connected to our software. That's all through Golf Business.
I guess, could the software handle that though? Do we know the answer to that?
Would we, for golf?
Yeah.
Would we want to do that? I mean, right now, we're not involved with the scheduling or any of that. So it's like putting a third party in it. I don't know if that'd be beneficial or
Maybe a
not.
link or something through the app,
A link?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could certainly do a link to their website.
Can we, or will they, could we all be part of a beta test of the app? Like, who can be included in that so we can all take a look and, ask for features and, kind of bug test it?
Yeah, I think that we could, yeah, I think we could definitely set that up.
Set up a demo.
Like a,
We
like
can't customize, whatever they offer is what they have. We can suggest, like, for example, there's a staff side of it that you get this other staff app, which is really intriguing because it's like a checklist. You can see the pictures, you can use tablets. Actually, I was even thinking to the point where if they had a POS system available to offer on the staff side, we can get rid of the laptop and everything at the beach, and people can just have tablets. They're not there yet, they heard us, we mentioned that idea, and they'll take it to the developer, but they're, it's a process. They do have a timeline, they're bringing out some other things. Right now, you can't do rentals through, the app, but that is on their schedule. Like, if they're coming up, they're gonna offer that pretty soon. There's like a facility side, it really is, all it does is show you the times available for like the rec center, or, the pickleball courts, or the paddle hut. It doesn't do anything else. And it's almost like, okay, well, people are gonna get kind of like, well, why doesn't it do anything else? Why do you have it there? But we could set up, I could talk to them and see if we can set up a demo.
And we could probably, if we do it with, like, we're doing these weekly calls, if we do it with one of those, we could probably have, again, up to 2 commissioners on that same call with us without having, an LMA issue.
I'd love to join.
Do you see this app making your lives easier?
Oh, yeah. I think so, because we can transform the guest service eventually with tablets. And all the waivers will be on there, it'll be all electronic, and, people waiting in line, you can hand them a tablet and then they can create their own account. Right now, it's all done on the computer. And it's, like when I was here, one of the days when we were doing the final day for pool memberships, it was a long line. If we had a couple of tablets and I still had 2 staff members, one is, it's going to be helpful to us, but more importantly, it's also going to make it easier for the consumer. I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, I think that's really the key, is making it, easier for our patrons to be able to, use the app and to be able to register right on their phone. I think people are expecting more and more to be able to do almost everything on the phone these days. You renew your plates, do whatever. So I think that's even more convenient for the patrons than than for staff. I think is the emphasis.
So with the push notifications, just thinking about like fitness center, so like right now, if you join for a month, you kind of don't hear anything and your month is over, and it's kind of, would you get a push notification like, you better hurry up and, join again, your month is expiring, your quarter is expiring, things like that.
Yeah, I think he said something, but I'd have to get clarification.
Okay.
But there were notifications to those that had accounts that it would let them know. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
but
And something like that would be good to have like an opt-out rather than an opt-in for that kind of push notification too.
it was a cool feature for the push notifications, just for all different things, that are going on. If a class got canceled, if a program instructor was sick, or it was that was one of the best features. And you can turn it on and off. So it's not something that everyone has to have the push notification. You just shut it off if you don't want that feature.
So talk to me a little bit more about the additional staff feature. Is that an additional $7,000 per month for that functionality that you still want to do some testing on?
Well, it was like really late when, I wish they would have said something when we first did our demo, because they offered a special last month for the month of April that you could have done a week of this for free. And by the time you get 1 day, to do the staff side of the app for free. I'm hoping he's coming back and he's going to say we can do it for May. But I think the staff side, that's the thing that we're negotiating. It's not something that we need right now, but I thought what was a great feature of it, again, hopefully later I'll have a POS system, we can do stuff at the beach. But you can take dailies, so you can use it at the pool. So you can do tablets at the pool, people can take their picture with the tablet. You can do, so you can do your membership card, you can check in people. The safety feature, I look at it as when parents come to pick up their kids and we at camp, it gets very chaotic and we have lists. Well, instead of a list, you just, push in, check marking each kid. And the parent can sign off.
Pull up really quickly, child's name, and now you can see who's authorized to pick them up. So aunt so-and-so, mom, dad, and grandma, or whatever. So they can have that information, access it quickly. But I think to answer your question, the 7,000 was, they were talking about, potentially 10,000 for the app and 7,000 for the staff app. But that's what we were trying to clarify. We said, was that through the end of the year? That's not per month. So was that through the end of the year, or was that for a year, starting from whenever we started? And they weren't clear on that. They were having to go back and check that information. Again, we have another call tomorrow or Wednesday, I guess.
Tell them that's for a year.
I told them we didn't have even 17,000 budget for this year.
Yeah.
We did have 10,000 identified and, IT related that could be used or we could always find more money if we needed to, but we're just trying to get the best price proposal right now for the park district.
The reason I keep asking is it seems, let's say it's $10,000 a month, it's $120,000 a year. It's not one of those things you're just going to try it for a little bit and then say, well,
So that's an annual fee, that's not a monthly fee. That 10,000.
Really? It's just 10,000?
10,000
Per month, and per year.
10,000 was for the year, and the question was that through the end of the year, the calendar year, or is that a year from the day? But that's not a month, that's for a year, we just have to define a year.
Okay.
That's a big difference in price.
Yeah.
I always repeat that.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want to give you a heart attack.
Listen, if it's gonna, give, staff 3-4, people's times back, then it actually does make sense that it's $120,000 a year, but okay. That sounds good.
Good, all right, that sounds like, thank you for the weekly meetings, it sounds like, to make progress on that. Building hours, update.
Well, we're excited to announce today is the first day that we've fully returned to our pre-COVID hours. So we're open until 9 p.m. this evening instead of 8 p.m. So we can let this meeting run longer if you'd like. We don't have a problem with that, but
Or we could all go play basketball afterwards.
So it's been a difficult process to get here. You just, and again, not really being able to fill all of the slots every night with current staff. We had to create the evening guest service position, advertise, hire, train, and start. And that's who's working this evening. So say hi to Brian on your way out. That's our evening person that's helping out with those hours. That was dramatic.
Sorry.
We've also finally been able to hire a evening, PM facility maintenance. I don't want to steal all of Noah's thunder, but Micah is doing cartwheels. He's very happy. We've not had that position. We had the part-time position. With that person leaving back in December, we've not been able to refill that role until this week. He started today. So we have, and it's full-time, as the board knows, you supported the staff's recommendation to create a full-time position. We advertised, and then we've hired a new employee named Igor, and he started today. So he's working the PM. That's 12:30 to close. So now we have a second person. And he's very helpful with working on pool prep and getting the pool work ready, because we have a part-time person that comes in at 5 in the morning, works from 5 to 11, and now we have Igor that's here 12:30 to close. So he's at work afternoon, evening, and Mike is here during the day. So But for the building hours, we've been able to, now being able to return to the full hours, the building is open 101 hours per week. And so we're happy to be able to, that we've been able to do this. I know this was something that the board was interested in seeing and providing for the community, and it's taken a little bit of time to be able to do that, but we are doing it, and we have solid coverage now. So going forward, I think that we'll be able to continue that. Days will cut back just a little bit from Memorial Day to Labor Day. It cuts back 3 hours a week. It's opens or closes an hour earlier on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those 3 days. So that's the only changes for the summer hours. And then after Labor Day, we'll go back to the full hours.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, good. It's good news.
Great news.
And before our meeting started, John brought to my attention that there was a Sunday night how did you phrase it?
All agency.
All agency meeting, because you have to have everybody meet at a time that the building is closed to the public. So 65 Park District employees met on Sunday evening so that they could go through training. So that's our staff and how dedicated they are. So thank you very much for doing that. That's time out of your lives again. So I appreciate it.
Really good turnout last night. With the staff, it was from 5 to 7, about a 2-hour meeting, covered a lot of training. It's something that the Park District has done annually for about 10 years. Since I've been here, they've all been on Zoom. So this was our first super spreader event. No, but, live event with everybody back in the room. And it was actually really, really well received. We got a lot of good feedback. A lot of people happy to be back together. One of the highlights for us was bringing our own Jeff Spillman back in the building. He's been in the building for a few years, so he was able to attend the meeting and see a lot of people that he's worked with for years. So that was pretty exciting, but definitely a positive meeting.
Good, 101 hours a week, that's a lot. Speaking of which then, going on to the Park District 100-year anniversary. It is 2023, it's never too early to start planning a party. So we know at this point that, thank you to Steve Kraus and to George Russell, they are pulling all of the board minutes from ancient times, whatever they can find. And they are scanning those for the History Museum. So there will be the archive of that. I know the History Museum has expressed interest in working with us to plan the 100th anniversary. But I'm throwing this out there to everybody on the board to say, how can we start putting the wheels in motion to say that we're going to celebrate this 100 years of a park district in about a year and a half.
I think there needs to be a subcommittee.
And there is a mechanism for that, in the policy to do, we have our standing committees, but there's also, you can designate the committees with a focus on, an event or a time frame.
Like they did for that village, right?
Okay.
Yes,
Or-
yeah, both Jim and I were on that, on the 125th committee, along with Steve Kraus and a lot of others from the community.
So put this forward and get a committee together to start planning this. We are still going to have fireworks again this year, just because it seems to be a wonderful event, and we have a very generous corporate sponsor to put that together. So hopefully they still get that enthusiasm for 2 years from now. But that sounds good. September, is that, am I right?
About the third Saturday in September.
Okay,
Yeah, that's for the village.
but September is our actual anniversary then, is that correct?
Oh, for the park district?
I'm testing you on your
I don't think
park
so.
district board.
I think it was June or July, but I'll have to check. I know it's 1925, but I'll have to
Okay.
check the month.
Okay. So we'll put together, ask for folks to donate, or excuse me, to volunteer, donate. There will be a donation sure, but we're gonna start donate their time and volunteer to start planning the 100th anniversary. All right, we made it in record time, and I appreciate everybody's time tonight to be able to do this, but I'm glad we were able to get through information about the grants and about what's happening now with our software and so forth. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.